Today, I'm telling you about the story of what is likely basketball's most iconic image of all time. The day is March 2nd, 1962, nearly a lifetime ago, and yet still somehow it remains the greatest scoring performance of NBA history. Around the organization and among the basketball community, this day started just by feeling like any other usual day in the league. On this particular evening, Wilt Chamberlain's Philadelphia Warriors were scheduled to take on the 27-45 New York Knicks. This epic game would be taking place in a humble town known more for its chocolate than its basketball, Hershey, Pennsylvania. This game would be held at Hershey Sports Arena, a small building that can seat only slightly over 4,000 people. Now there is absolutely no visible footage of this game. A man named Harvey Pollock was the only writer who was covering the game, because like I mentioned earlier, nothing felt special or different about tonight's game, and press members didn't want to take a bus ride from New York to Little Hershey, Pennsylvania on a Friday night for simply a regular season game with almost no playoff implications. Little did they know how much they blew it on that decision. At the time, Harvey was the PR director for the Warriors, he was the game statistician, the writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, a writer for the Associated Press, and a writer for United Press International. Harvey said he had been in the NBA for 65 years, and this was easily the busiest evening of his life. Now heading into this game, Wilt was absolutely destroying and dominating the league like no one ever has. He was averaging an absurd and difficult to fathom 50.8 points per game on the season heading into this evening. To put that in perspective, Michael Jordan is second all-time in 50-point games with a total of 31 over his career. Wilt did it 45 times in this season alone. Just a few weeks before this game, Warriors head coach Frank McGuire had sarcastically joked that Wilt would probably score 100 soon. Now, according to Wilt, he had a date the night before, and he also struggled with insomnia, so he had basically got no sleep the night before. You would think that this would be a recipe for a poor performance, but instead, the performance would be quite ironic. Just hours before the game, Wilt was playing arcade games involving toy rifles, and he couldn't miss anything. Wilt said that he saw this as a sign of things to come. With that being said, Wilt normally tore up the New York Knicks, but the stage was set for him especially on this night. It would take a rotation of players to defend Wilt, because he was the pinnacle of stamina and he was averaging 48.5 minutes per game on the year. Wilt literally played every single moment of every single game that he was eligible to play for that entire season. He never went to the bench, other than a single instance where he had been ejected by the referee. Phil Jordan was the usual 6'10 starting center for the Knicks. Phil was listed as a scratch because of a quote sore shoulder, but according to his teammates, he had been partying the night before and was puking from the hangover just hours before tip-off. Darrell Imhoff was the 6'10 backup center, but he was a skinny player who was no match for the beast that is Wilt Chamberlain. Behind Imhoff was the 6'8 power forward named Cleveland Buckner. Whenever Imhoff would be resting, it would be the significantly smaller Buckner whose job it was to slow down Chamberlain. Spoiler alert, he fails miserably. Finally, the game is underway, and remember how we talked about Wilt being in a zone when he was playing the arcade games before the game? Yep, it translated onto the court. After the first few minutes, the Warriors had zoomed out to a 19-3 lead, with Wilt making all of his first 5 shots. The Knicks could tell early on that they were in for a long night defending Wilt. Throughout his career, he usually kept his shots close to the basket, but Wilt was so on point that night that he said he extended his range to jumpers as far out as the top of the key. When New York threw several players at Chamberlain and they all continued to fail, they then turned to their only other option, which was repeatedly fouling him and sending him to the line. Only one problem. The typically terrible free throw shooter in Wilt wasn't missing basically anything this night, including the free throws. Wilt made an incredible 28 of his 32 free throws this game. It's worth noting that for his career, Wilt Chamberlain was statistically a worse free throw shooter than the famously terrible Shaquille O'Neal, and yet, Wilt still shot 28 of 32 on this night. That alone should tell you the kind of zone he was in. By halftime, the Warriors had a 79-68 lead, and Wilt was sitting at 41 points. It wasn't uncommon for Wilt to head into halftime close to this point total, but during the halftime meeting, Wilt's teammate Guy Rodgers and their head coach Frank McGuire agreed that they should feed the ball to the Big Dipper just to see how much he could get. As a result, Wilt's rate of scoring increased, and he dominated throughout the entire third quarter, in which he scored 28 points, moving his total at the end of the third quarter to 69 points. Entering the fourth quarter, and the game is turning into a blowout, with the Warriors holding a 125-106 lead. Wilt had his eyes set on 2 scoring records, and both were already his. When he passed 73 points, he broke his record for the most points ever scored in a regulation game. When he passed 78 points, he broke his record for the most points ever scored in any game.
133 to 118. History being written tonight in Hershey. The big man has broken the record and he's gone for more.
He had 79 points with around 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. From this point on, Dave Zinkoff, the PA announcer of the Warriors, is announcing Wilt's point total to the entire arena after each basket.
You know what's in the fans' mind? They're thinking of the magic number, 100.
It was evident to all the Warriors fans and players that the goal was 100. It was also evident to the Knicks players, who did not want to be on the wrong side of history. As Wilt's total continues to climb, there begins to be head games within the game itself. Knicks are down by 20 points with only 4 minutes remaining. For the Knicks, it's not even about getting a win anymore because the outcome is already decided. It's all about stopping Wilt from reaching 100. The Knicks began to freeze the ball and tried to eat clock each time it was their possession. The Warriors players began intentionally fouling the Knicks to get the ball back to Wilt for more opportunities. Then when the Knicks were on defense, they started fouling the Warriors guards on purpose to send them to the free throw line. That way Wilt can't get any more opportunities to score. The Warriors players then countered by playing hot potato with the basketball and by getting the ball to Chamberlain by any means necessary as quickly as possible. Despite an entire roster whose sole mission was to stop Wilt from hitting the century mark, they still couldn't slow him down. And then, with Wilt sitting at 98 points with just under a minute remaining in the game, the historic moment takes place.
167 to 146. Now let's see if they found somebody quick. Rodgers throws long to Chamberlain. He's got it. He's trying to get up. He shoots. No good. The rebound, Luckenbill. Back to Chamberlain. He shoots up. No good. In and out. The rebound, Luckenbill. Back to Rucklick. Into Chamberlain.